Welcome everyone. I'm Tracy Fitzpatrick and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us here at Netcom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions. We are thrilled to welcome you to today's event, Data Security and Compliance in the Age of Cloud. Presenting today's topic is Imran Ahmad. Imran is a seasoned technologist and AWS and Google Cloud authorized instructor, specializing in cloud computing, AI, and algorithm design. Known for simplifying complex concepts, he delivers hands-on, impactful training that empowers professionals to build secure, scalable cloud solutions. His writing and teaching bridge theory with real-world application, enhancing skills in cloud architecture, AI, ML, and DevOps. With a multi-cloud approach and a passion for innovation, Imran mentors learners through certifications and practical adoption strategies, making tech education clear, relevant, and career-focused. Please bear in mind that this is an overview of a very robust topic. We offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored to your specific requirements. If you are interested in a further discussion, you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you'll get free access to the recording in the next 24 hours via email. Netcom Learning helps customers build innovative learning organizations by achieving a smarter workforce, adapting to change, and driving growth. We do this with a broad catalog of offerings, developing customized learning plans, and our global delivery capabilities. Since 1998, we have been empowering organizations with our managed learning services to help them reach optimal performance results and address challenges. We do have 9 practice areas in which we specialize. They encompass people, process, and technology training. Today's presentation is from the Cloud Practice Area. Netcom Learning offers a comprehensive training portfolio of courses for the topic being covered today. Our upcoming classes include various trainings on the given courses. You can also access a variety of marketing assets, such as the free training and blogs, by clicking on the available event handout. These offerings can be found with a simple search on our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session equips IT and business leaders with key strategies to address data security and compliance challenges in the cloud. As cloud adoption grows, protecting sensitive data and meeting evolving regulations is crucial. You'll learn how to ensure data integrity, manage risk, and build a scalable, security-first approach. I would like to give you a quick overview of the logistics before we get started. To begin with, you do have the option to view in full screen by clicking on the full screen button on the right side of the GoToWebinar viewer. Simply hit the escape key to exit the full screen. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters. Feel free to submit any questions you have for the presenters here in the questions pane, and we will address them at the end of the session. And to get the best out of today's events, we've included the slides, courses we talk about, and marketing assets in the handouts section of your GoToWebinar viewer. You may refer to them at any time to get a better understanding of today's topic. And we do realize that some of you may have to leave early and want to let you know that as you do leave the session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to take a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience and improve our future sessions for you. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. And now I'd like to pass this over to our trainer to present today's topic. Hey, Imran, thank you so much for joining us today.
Okay, thank you very much, Tracy. Thanks for the introduction, and let's now start the webinar. So this webinar is on an important topic, and that topic is about the data security and compliance in the age of the cloud. So now this topic has become even more important as the importance of cloud has increased, and it is starting to be used in all sorts of use cases. It also means that the data that traditionally used to be on premise, now slowly it is being transferred to the cloud. And it means that both in the data dimension and in the compute dimension, when we talk about the cloud, now cloud essentially has uh, data dimension. It means that the way we store the data in the repositories that are hosted in the cloud. That is one thing. But there is a compute dimension as well, the way we process the data, the way our applications live in the cloud. So that needs to be secured as well. Logic needs to be secured, and the data that creates information, that needs to be secured as well. If we are not careful, it has potential to become a single point of failure. It means that once the security is compromised, then perhaps years and years of data, logic, and everything will be compromised as well. So let's look into that, what we will be covering today. So we will start with looking at the importance of data security. So why data security is important? I briefly talked about that, but we will go deeper about that briefly. Then we will look into proactive risk management. It means that instead of being in firefighting mode, where you are trying to put down fires, what you are doing is that you are looking at proactively how you can manage the risk and how you can detect the threat before it becomes an actual threat to our business, for example. Now, this first part, if you look into this, it's generally about the cloud. It is not Google specific. We'll try to look into that, what are the issues and what are the solutions around that. And once we are done with that, what we'll be doing is that we will be looking at then the cloud security, that what cloud has to offer. So we will talk about this, that Google, we will be looking into Google specific tools. Now we will, so there are, so when we talk about Google Cloud security in particular, or cloud security in general, one of the design patterns that is very effective is about creating layers of defense. So depth in defense, as we say, that don't rely on one protection technology. So have that layered defense, just like that used to be in those medieval forts. If you have visited those forts in, for example, Scotland or India or different parts of Europe, so they did not rely on one layer. There were multiple layers of defense. So the same thing we will try to look into, that how we can bring that to Google Cloud. And we will also look into that, how we can actually design from the architecture point of view. And design is not, design is only first part of the thing. Once you have designed, then you need to implement that as well. So how we can design and implement a secure cloud environment. And finally, we will look into some best practices. So now let's start with looking at the cloud paradigm shift. Now, cloud itself is disruptive, it's transformative. It has changed the way we used to create our architectures for years, for decades, for example. It has brought new opportunities, as well as there are certain risks there as well that we need to be aware of, and we need to address those risks through better architecture. First of all, we need to be aware that what is available, what sort of tools are available to address those risks. So when we talk about the cloud, cloud comes with scalability. And scalability, it's a great thing, but scalability brings with it the risk of it becoming a large scale disaster. If the security gets compromised. In other words, the term that we use is blast radius. blast radius is that if something goes wrong, then what is the diameter, what is the radius in which that blast affects other things as well. So blast radius is potentially, if we are not aware, if we are not conscious, if we are not on guard, then the blast radius is huge. And now it also has lots of flexibility. But if you are not aware, again, if we are not conscious, then we may expose our solution to dangers that we will look into this in this webinar. Now, because cloud also has a global reach, it also means that if you have a solution that is on-premise solution, it has very limited reach. And it also means that limited reach comes with limited risk there as well, because it's not, for example, in other continents, in other countries, because it's not available. There is no way that that can be breached. So if someone has an incentive to break into your systems, now it has a global reach, so you need to protect that from the attackers that are globally located. So, cloud also has, so there are many services there as well. No, managed services, they are open source traditional services, then there are managed services. By managed services, we means that if you are using Google Cloud, then Google Cloud specific services like if you are looking for an example, the best example that comes with Google Cloud is BigQuery. So BigQuery is perhaps the best example of a managed service. So now it means that because it's managed service, you have limited knowledge of the way it is implemented, the hardware. So in that case, that becomes the responsibility of the vendor. But you still need to be aware of at the service level, how you can make sure that all the best practices related to security, they are in the design and they are in the implementation as well. Now, if you look into the emerging security challenge that are coming, so one thing that is a bit disturbing as well, the power of the cloud can be used by the bad actors. If someone is a hacker, someone wants to have access on critical government service, that attacker, that bad actor, also has the power of the cloud. That person also has AI. That person also has tools that were not available in the past. And what I'm saying here is that this scalability, this global reach, this rapid innovation, this managed services, they can be used in a good way. And if someone want to attack it, it can be used to launch a large scale attack as well. So we need to be ready for this as well. So this is an emerging challenge that is there. So there are the attack surface is now different, and we need to be aware of it as well. Now, there are, and in many cases, when we use cloud is using complex multi-tenant environments. And what is meant by that is that now the same hardware, the same infrastructure that is housing logic and data that may be coming from different rival organizations. So in Canada, for example, there is TD Bank, there is Scotiabank, there is Bank of Montreal. If they are using Google Cloud, so all of them may be the logic and the data of that compute and data dimension. They may be sharing it. There's a way that you can force the vendor, force cloud to keep it separate. But by default, this is what the behavior is. We need to be aware of that. We need to quantify the risks, and if this is something that does not work for us, and so then we need to choose the solution in which there is a single tenant environment. It will be a bit expensive as well. So then there is now how do we know that the emerging, so there are new risks, new techniques that are being created, because as I mentioned that this power of the cloud and the emerging AI and the large language models and agents and autonomous, all this power is also available to the attacker. So we want to make sure that we are aware of it and we are continuously monitoring. We are so that everything remains secure. Now, if you look into the proactive imperative, so we talked about the proactive security here, that we need to be proactive here. Now, this proactive security imperative, so it comes with, first of all, early threat identification. I talked about the firefighting mode. Firefighting mode, there will be a fire and you will be in fire. You will find yourself in a firefighting mode, but we should be avoiding that as much as possible. So it means that we need to have monitoring, analysis, and some sort of predictive mechanisms that we are doing continuous behavioral analysis. So example would be that if on one of the servers there are all of a sudden the request and response, if the requests are coming from one IP address and they exceed the threshold, it means that there is something that we need to be aware of and it needs to be flagged. Then it means that once there is a threat detection through this automated process, so what it means is that our response time is important. So if we are prepared, then it will result in reduced response time, and that will have a positive impact on our business because our service will be down for lesser amount of time. And it also means that the data exposure, it means that through the preventive controls that we have chosen to take, the data exposure was reduced as well, because what we did was, hopefully, if we have built the depth and defense, it means that before our critical data and compute systems were compromised, we were able to mitigate, we were able to provide a solution to that. So now, if you look into the now, this is about the issues related to the security, and if you look into how we are going to implement that, there are different ways you can do that. First of all, security by design. So security should not be an afterthought. It's not that the system is now done, the functional requirements are met, now you are paying attention to non-functional requirements, performance and security included. It should be baked into the original design. It should be the first-rate citizen, as we call, not someone who was, later on we said, okay, let's look into security, because some decisions you have already taken, and now sometimes this is not the optimal security solution if you add the security as an afterthought. Then there will be in Google Cloud, there are compliance verification. Again, it should be turned on. It should be monitored on the continuous basis. If rotation of the digital certificates is not done on a regular basis, or if let's assume that encryption is not at the proper level, or your security policies are not up to the standard, all of them should be flagged and it should be rectified straight away. Now, if you want to look into the security assessment, so it means that it should be done on a continuous basis. Now, if you look into the importance of security in cloud computing, So in cloud computing, as we are starting to use that for critical use cases, it means it implies that we will have some critical assets because it's used for critical use cases. Now it means that when there are critical assets there, so there are two parts of it. First of all, um, there is business intelligent protection. It means that if, for example, you are using some proprietary algorithms, or there is price strategies, or you have some intellectual properties or trade secrets, all of them need to be protected. And if you are looking for example for data, now customer data, if customer data may include PII, that is PII is the data that can identify a person, like your SIN number or your social insurance number or your ID card number, your driver license, your email, phone number, date of birth. All of them are your someone that can identify a person. And now, if that is compromised, there will be business as well as potentially legal implications of that. Now, if you look into the financial and health records, now they are protected. Now we should be first of all aware that this should be used when there is a use case for it. There is a they should not be out in the public, or there can be provincial data. So these are so there are two ways you can look into this. So when there is the critical assets, you can say that this is the compute dimension and this is the data dimension, and both of them need to be protected. Now, if you look into the key threats to the cloud, what are the key threats? So first threat that we have is that there can be external and internal breach vectors. What it means is that there can be sophisticated attack methodologies. Examples are that there can be multi-stage campaigns. There can be social engineering targets. So someone can try to steal the credentials and from there launch attack. There can also be some let's say that the dependencies on which your business depends, that can be compromised. Or what can happen is that if you're using open source frameworks, so some of those frameworks may have known vulnerabilities. In Canada, there was a attack on CRA, that is the Tax Collection Agency of government, 2 years ago. And the reason was that they were using Apache web server, and that Apache web server had a known vulnerability. So the patch was released, but that was not applied. And the result was that millions of people, their text data was compromised. It means that, so there may be, this is a vulnerability that we need to be aware of, that the patches that are, so we would like to make sure that in the cloud, when we are using open source, so we are applying all the patches there. Now, there can be insider threat scenario. What is an insider threat? Insider threat is that if everything is secure, so in your team, there is a bad actor. So we are always trying to identify the bad actors. Usually they're external, usually they are people, but they can be bots in that case that are processes. There can be AI bots these days that they are now bad actors, bad players. Now it's rare, but it can happen that there can be a bad actor within the organization. That is called an insider threat. Now, the problem with this one is that a trusted member of the team, that now if that person's wants to attack the system. So what is the blast radius? How far that person go, right? This is why what we do is that we design systems, we discourage the role of a super user. We try to go with the principle of least privilege. We try to reduce the admins. We try to distribute the privilege among the users instead of creating one super user in each of the services, right? And if the things get compromised, there should be detection systems that can detect, flag, and move on. There should be audit trails so that if there is something that goes, if there's an insider threat, even if that person is playing with the systems, turning off the security, everything gets audited and no one is able to turn that off. So eventually someone will be able to flag that, okay, there's an insider threat. We'll talk more about that. And now yeah, there can be privilege user abuse in a system. As I mentioned that in the cloud, we discourage creation of a super user. And we also discourage and we also encourage giving conforming to the principle of least privilege, errors on the side of the caution. Do not give a privilege to anyone unless they are absolutely needed. And this is where we try to reduce the abuse of the privileged users that is right here. Now, uh, if there can be human error as well. So someone was, I'll give you an example here. So if someone is uploading the file to cloud storage, a bucket in cloud storage, someone can unintentionally copy it into a public bucket, a secret data copied to a public bucket. Now, public bucket, as we know, this is the exposure is across the globe, you know. So so this is where automated compliance and the security policies will be important, you know. So you can say that, okay, for this domain, for this vertical, no public bucket allowed, or no data access unless we go through extensive authentication and authorization through IAM module that is we'll discuss later. Now it means that those policies will be a safeguard sort of company-wide logic that will reduce the threat to the chances of a threat to our infrastructure, and if things do get compromised, they will reduce the blast radius as well. Now, it can be so disgruntled employees, sabotage and data theft. Sometimes when companies are going through bad times or companies are going through layoffs or workforce is being reduced. So this is something that may happen, that especially they can so we need to safeguard against it. And then if you are using third-party tools, then third-party vendor, sometimes we want to make sure that they are not compromising the credentials that were given to them for certain use case, so they don't exploit it for other things. Now, if you look into the technical vulnerability, so one common scenario is that we have found this, that in many cases it's about the misconfigured storage bucket or the APIs, the service offered through APIs, if they are not properly secured. Now that will result in this infrastructure weakness. So if the infrastructure weakness is that when there is some gap in the infrastructure that you have created, it can or it can be due to the the way you have designed the network security and the access controls. I talked about the importance of applying the latest patch, or it can be for unpatched systems, or it can be about outdated components. Uh, One thing that Google has by default, encryption is strong encryption, but it may happen. It's not that there are ways to turn that off. So weak encryption is a recipe for disaster, because if you have because weak encryptions due to the availability of AI. I talked about that over and over again. We need to realize that as well, that AI brings AI in the hands of bad actors. It may it what so the weak encryption, the low level security, the bare minimum security, it is very simple to compromise. Now, 4 years ago, that was not the case. Now, if you talk about the legal frameworks, so there are different verticals that are within different compliance regulations. Healthcare is an example. Now, if you so first of all, you want to make sure that you are compliant. You are compliant to the applicable regulations, because compliance may be a legal requirement, or it may be done just to make sure that you have peace of mind, that you have followed the best practices that are part of any regulations, because these regulations, they are thought out processes that make sure implementation of that, make sure that your infrastructure is following the best practices, you know. So some of those regulations are mentioned here. GPDR, this is Europe. It's about consent, and then access and portability rights are part of it as well. CCPA is CPRA is this is about California. It about the consumer transparency control. Then there are the regulations there as well. Now, if you look into the verticals or domain specific, one of the important ones are HIPAA. If you are looking into using these methodologies in healthcare, for hospitals, for clinics, for medical research, then you want to make sure that the patient data that is protected. And if you are working in, I talked about this is about different verticals. The second vertical is about financials. Now, this is where payment data processing requirements. Then the third one is SOX. This is about the financial reporting and data integrity. And then GLBA, this is about the information protection, the rights of the customer, they are protected through that. So these are some of the regulations. This is not, of course, a comprehensive list. You need to find your vertical, you need to find your domain, and find the right regulations there. And then there will be general regulations that will be applicable across the board. Now, the question is that whose responsibility is this if you have solution on the cloud like Google Cloud and it gets compromised? Is it your responsibility or it's Google's responsibility? It depends. And the analogy that I give is that let's assume that there's a builder who has built you a home. Now that home, the home that is built by a builder, you have moved into that home. Now, there is some responsibility that lies on the shoulder of the builder, and there is some responsibility that is your responsibility. Let's talk about both. Now, it's builder responsibility to make sure that for example, the walls of the home, they are strong enough. You know, the locks are there, they're reliable. Then the door, they are strong enough. You know, all these are the responsibility of the builder. Now it's your responsibility as the resident of that home, as the user at that home, that now you need to use those doors, lock them before you go for vacation. If you are out on vacation and there is some incident that happens, you cannot blame. You can blame the vendor. You can blame the builder if the door was not strong enough and someone just punched and entered the broke the door and entered the home. So, but if you forgot to lock the door, then it's your responsibility. Now, the same analogy is in the cloud as well. There will be something that is your responsibility. There will be something that is Google's responsibility. So that is, it depends on the service. Which service are you using? So there are, first of all, there is, now this is the provider, that is the Google provider. It's Google's responsibility to provide the infrastructure protection. What it means is that the physical data center, the network infrastructure, the hardware integrity, and if they're using hypervisor, then the security around the hypervisor. So this is all the responsibility of Google. And if there are service level guarantees, so now service level guarantees means that now it's on a higher layer. So it means that the best practices about the platform, let's assume again, coming back to the example of BigQuery. So let's, I want you to think about BigQuery. So now BigQuery, if BigQuery is a data warehouse that is offered by Google, and you can think of that this is perhaps one of the most powerful. It brings with it one of the most powerful compute engine that is offered anywhere in the cloud. And all you need is a browser. All you need is a browser and a knowledge of SQL to use it, right? Now, this is offered as a platform. This is a platform for data warehouse functionality. It's a platform. But if it's a platform, it means that the actual hardware, you are not exposed to the actual hardware. You don't know that what CPUs, how much memory. This is information that is not available to you. So it means that it becomes, this whole thing becomes Google's responsibility, and it means that the platform availability, then it means that the security patching that is applied on BigQuery, for example, or any other service similar to that, threat monitoring, baseline compliance, now that becomes essentially Google's responsibility. Now this shared responsibility in a way, so if you look into your obligation, it's about making sure that you are using the authentication and authorization. If you are creating passwords, if you're creating and you are sharing that across the globe, or you have put the password in social media, it means that you have failed to comply to the standards that should be there to protect a system. Nothing can be done about it. If it was just like coming back to the example of the builder and the home, if builder has given you a door and a lock, but you have a key and you give key to anyone, your key is up for the use for the public, no matter how strong the door is, because everyone has your key, everyone can enter in. So it means that the vendor, Google in this case, can give you those doors and those locks, but you need to be aware and use that in proper way. So it means that make sure that there are no misconfigurations there in the processes that are about the authentication and authorization, and the data encryption that is turned on, and then there is network security. If you're using that, it means that the network security is there turned on. And the application security and the code integrity is there as well. Now, if you look into the operational responsibilities, it's about the making sure that the configuration files, so the YAMLs and the JSONs, or that in which you control the settings of the cloud, they are there. The user permissions and review, and the way you are handling the sensitive data is there as well. Now, as I already talked about, that first of all you need to identify that your use case is under what compliance, and you want to make sure that you adhere and abide by that compliance, and that is done in a regular basis. It's not that it's once done and move away, not that sort of thing. You have to be compliant, and you have to make sure that you remain compliant throughout the project life cycle. That is why monitoring is important as well. Now, if you look into the risk management fundamentals, so there can be a systematic identification process. So it means that first of all, you need to be aware, the system needs to be aware that how many uh, components are there, how many assets are there. You also need to do some threat modeling. So it means that there are some simulations, some scenarios where you do penetration testing. You see that if you simulate a bad actor and see that what can go wrong, you know. And this is where you will do the vulnerability assessment, and you will do this. I talked about the penetration testing. Testing is that you try to break your system. You see that whether you try to act as a hacker and see that how far you can go. It will give you some idea that how secure the system is, and then you also look into the business impact if things go wrong. So you should have the some figure that what will be the impact on business if something goes wrong. And it will also show you that what is the risk prioritization, and if the business impact is huge, it will have you will have more incentive to make sure that you are investing more in protecting your infrastructure, both in terms of time and resources and cost. Now, when you talk about the continuous risk management cycle, now risk assessment is not done, so it's something that needs to be done and in real time. So you start with something with a baseline risk management, and there will be emerging threats. There will be no new risk that will be added to the plate. So, and then what you will do is that from there you will do benchmarking and enhancement as you go along. Now, if you look into the operational disruption risks, it's about, so you have to think it through that if something goes wrong, what are the implications of that? Implications maybe it's about the service may not be available, whatever you are, it will affect the bottom line, the profits. It may reduce the trust in your services that you are offering, and now it can also result in data loss. And now if the data is lost, it means that it is more than just your service being unavailable. Right? So you would like to see that what leads towards these operational disruptions and how you can mitigate that as well. Now, if you look into the different types of risk in the cloud, so there are more than one types of risks. So intellectual property theft. If you have a product that you have spent years in making it perfect, now the example of that would be Samsung. There was a Samsung a couple of years ago in the start of this ChatGPT boom. So what happened was that engineers at Samsung, it's a well-documented use case. They started using So they were hard pressed on the deadlines, that they were tight deadlines, and they started using Chat GPT to develop the whole thing, to write the code. There is nothing unusual about it, and in many companies that is allowed. What is not allowed is that they uploaded their whole framework to ChatGPT so that it can produce code for them. So the whole code was uploaded to ChatGPT. For 5 or 6 years of effort, and it was uploaded, and they wanted it to. So the code was created, but in the process, there was an intellectual property that got compromised. It's a use case where that is we teach that in universities as well. After that, Samsung basically stopped using allowing its developer to use large language models. But intellectual property, once it is out in the public, there is no way you can take it back. It's a one-way trip. So it means that we have to make sure that when we are creating these solutions in the cloud, so there is no intellectual property theft, or the risk of that is minimized. Now, ransomware, again, this is very nasty, where someone can take hold of, can take control of your infrastructure, and then demand some money out of that, or there can be destructive attacks. If you think that it won't happen, there are documented use cases that it has happened in large companies as well, ransomware. And there can be account hijacking, or in which, or the privilege escalation, where a guest can find a way to escalate it itself to an admin, and from there it can launch an attack, or can steal the intellectual property, or steal the data, or do some destructive attacks, all of them. Now, it means that if the regulatory consequences of these actions are that if you have spent a couple of years to make your infrastructure compliant to a standard, to a regulations, you will lose those certification. It will take time. Those compliance authority will become more skeptical of your processes and methodologies. They may lose trust in your company. The customers can lose trust in your company, and when you can get decertified, and the time between decertification and the time where you get recertified, you may not be able to operate, because you are dealing with you may be dealing with a use case where the compliance is needed. Example is medical. If you need to be HIPAA compliant to work on any important medical use case. If you lose your license, if you lose your certification status, it means that if it takes 6 months to come back and recertify again, so in 6 months legally you cannot work on any of those use cases. Now, if you look into there can be even class action lawsuits, and it may involve some litigation cost as well. Now, we will not like to be in firefighting mode. We would like to be in a threat detection mode. We need to have solutions, predictive models, where we can detect the threat. And what it means is that there can be machine learning models that can identify the known threats. Those machine learning models can use behavior analysis. I mentioned that if there are large number of requests coming from a group of IP addresses, it means that we need to flag that and keep an eye on that. There are different heuristics detection algorithms. They are machine learning models that I talked about. They are trained on attack patterns. Now, if you look into the detection integration strategies, so there are many strategies. IEM, that is Security Information and Event Management. Then there is another one, UBA, that is User and Entity Behavior Analytics. What it does is that it looks into the interaction behavior of a user, and based on that, it can identify if there is an emerging threat there. And there can be um, this comes with the proactive monitoring as well. So what it means is that um, proactive monitoring, it means that we are there is a monitoring process. Otherwise, how you are going to do this? How you are going to detect the threat? So you have to have those advanced monitoring processes. And so in that case, there are different ways you can do that. Monitoring the user activity is a powerful way of doing that. Looking into the API call frequency, look into the network flow, having tools to do that, and looking into the resource utilization patterns. If the CPUs that are being utilized in the cloud, all of a sudden they are now utilized at 80-90%, you want to make sure what's going on. If you are getting out of the memory at a time that is not expected, or there is a API call frequency that is higher than usual, people are starting using your service that is coming out of it is more like an anomaly, something that did not happen in the past. Then you have it's you should be suspicious and look into that. And now if you look into the if what are the technologies there? So there are machine learning applications. They are supervised machine learning models. You can download them from Hugging Face, for example, for known threat patterns. They are specialized patterns that are using they're available in Google Cloud there as well. Now you can use open source or you can use Google specific, but the idea is that you can use supervised learning for known threat patterns and unsupervised learning to detect any anomaly. So association analysis is one of the techniques that can be used. And you can also look into the natural language processing for log analysis. As I mentioned, that audits and logs, they are your best post-mortem tool. Post-mortem means that things have already gone, you know that this incident happened. Now you want to learn from that. This is where these post-mortem tools becomes important. And you can use deep learning if you need more power, you need more resources to understand the complex patterns that can help you understand the user behavior and how it can lead towards a threat. So there are security orchestration, SOAR as it called. There can be, I already talked about this, SIEM. Then there is TIP integration. These are all security operations that can be integrated to the solution that you're providing to the cloud. Now, so I think it's time for a break. Let's take a short break and then we will come back. Okay, enjoy your break.
Sure, we are now going to take a 5-minute break, but before we do that, we are going to launch a quick poll that we want to invite you to participate in. Doing so helps us know how we can better serve you by telling us who might be interested in more information or in taking some additional training. In addition, we have a lot more informative webinars coming up, so please go to netcomlearning.com/webinars in order to register.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's continue from where we left off.
Let's look into Google specific tools that are available. So we talked about the general concepts that are applicable in the cloud from the conceptual level. Now let's look into that what we have that is related, relevant, and specific to Google. So Google is a security first approach. I said that in Google, the security is big, built in into the solution that is provided. I also talked about the design pattern, that is depth in defense. I also talked about the principles of least privilege, continuous verification, continuous monitoring, make sure that if our system is compliant, it remains compliant. And now, if you look into the infrastructure security advantage, there are many advantages because Google owns the hardware. So it means that it can control that what sort of system is being utilized. So Google, what they can do is that they can provide the security level, the hardware level security by using Titon security. It can also look into hardware integrity verification, automatic encryption at hardware level, the network security at default levels, TLS level security, all of them, because Google owns the hardware, it owns the CPU, it owns the chips, it owns the fiber in which all the network traffic is traveling. Now, if you look into the different Google Cloud security tools, they include so first of all, there is comprehensive coverage. There are tools in every dimensions. It's across all security domains. And there is a centralized visibility and monitoring available. So it means that there's a dashboard through which it can show you three things: your current compliance level, number one. Number two, what it will show you? It will show you the security dashboard situation, the security snapshot situation, and the third thing is that any suggestions that it can make that you should be doing. So these three things are displayed there. Now, operational efficiency improvement. It means that instead of using, if you are using 3 or 4 different services in the cloud, so you should be looking at integrated threat intelligence across all the product instead of going through all those 4 and 5 different tools or services that you're using. You should be looking into a dashboard that gives you an overview of those tools, and to the best of our ability, we will try to make it consistent. Now, authentication and authorization. Authentication is that prove who you. Authentication, of course, is proving who you claim to be. That is identity access, and then once you do that, then the authorization. Authorization is that once that authentication has been done, then giving you a certain level of privileges. So if you look into the now in Google, we are looking for role-based access. It means that there's a role of different there's a role for different services. There's an admin role, there's a guest role, there's a user role, there's a database maintainer role, there's a developer role, and we would like to give those roles to a person instead of manually configuring the level of security for each of the user. Otherwise becomes a maintenance nightmare. So role-based access is the way to go. Then there is a resource hierarchy. It means that in the organization folders, then because it's a multi-tier architecture, it means that in middle tiers, a service may need to act on the behalf of the originator. That is in most of the cases they are users. So we have service accounts to make sure that those application level premises they are provided and managed. And there can be conditional access based policies based on the context. This is advanced, and if there's a use case for that is available, and we can do that as well. Now, There are advanced levels there as well. Multi-factor authentication enforcement. This is the way to go these days. Then there is security key support. How you're going to rotate that? What are your method around this? And now there are password authentication, password-less authentication options. Password is becoming things of the past, and for many use cases, if you remove password, then what is the next thing? How you are going to authenticate in that case? Now, if you look into different Google specific tools, one of the tools is Google Cloud Armor. Now, Google Cloud Armor is a tool that manages the denial of service attacks. Now, denial of service attacks used to be nasty for so many years, but I talked about that a couple of times before, that now these tools, this distributed computing, this AI are also in the hands of the hacker. So this denial of service attack, where you launch many requests at the same time on the server with the intention to take it down due to just overwhelming it with so many requests, it also becomes much more nasty. Now, this tool, that is Google Cloud Armor, this is specific to protecting against denial of service attacks. It has the capability to detect automatic pattern recognition. It is trained to look into and identify these patterns, and then it also means that if you use Cloud Armor in the proper way, then it can identify and protect it against. This is the most nasty, most popular, and a bit simpler way of attacking from the hacker point of view, denial of service attack. Then it means that it is protected against it. Now, there is. It's also important to look into the way now the built-in detection rules. That we need to look into that as well. That there is a this is a unified threat detection platform, and it gives you some visibility to the built-in detection tools based on Google threat analysis. So Google will learn based on how you have deployed your service, how you have offered that to other users. It will create the rules, and if you want to look into that, you can see that what rules are being detected and being used to protect your system. Now there's also beyond COP enterprise security. If now there is something that is called zero trust. Zero trust means that for critical use cases, sometimes what it means is that we do not trust anyone. So if someone has been identified, authenticated, authorized just 5 minutes ago, when that for the next step we have to do it again. It means that for every step of the way in a workflow, we authenticate and authorize over and over again. We do not depend on any cache, because we have authenticated and authorized 2 minutes ago. It does not mean that we do not do it again. It makes a system a bit slower, about 20% slower, but it means that if there is a use case for it, it means that this continuous verification is the important part of it. So what we do is that we just keep verifying at every step of the way. Now, if you look into the confidential data on compute, first of all, there are multiple layers of protection. It's encrypted. There's a hardware isolation. There's a protection against the hypervisor. Then the memory in which resides, that is even encrypted. So, and if you're using a service like BigQuery, it means that all the best practices of security, they are applied there as well. And so data is as secure as it could be when you use Google Cloud, and many of those things are turned by default. Now, there is a security command center. Now, if you look into the security command center, the important thing is that you can think of that as a centralized dashboard, and it gives you the sort of overview of all the security findings that so all the it can all the assets that you have in Google, it can discover those assets, and it can also provide you the vulnerability across all the cloud resources. The compliance monitoring against benchmarks, all of this happen. So this is our overview dashboard that is available in Google Cloud. Now, if you want to design a secure cloud, there are certain principles that you need to mention. And now you need to know, and those principles, first of all, they are depth in defense. Don't rely on one layer. Don't rely on one of the techniques. Use multiple techniques. Build that in layers so that even if one layer, one tool, one method is compromised, you still have 2 or 3, 4 layers. And when the first layer gets compromised, it will, of course, generate some alerts, and there will be time to handle before your critical logic, code, and data is compromised. So that is why depth in defense is perhaps one of the most important design pattern. Then there's zero trusted architecture. If there is something that you really want to make sure that it does not get compromised, then every step of the way, what you do is that you keep authenticating and authorizing over and over again. So that is zero trust. Then there is centralized authentication infrastructure. It means that if you are looking for single sign-on implementation, so if it's token based like SAML and OIDC protocols, the centralized authentication infrastructure, you can harden that. You can apply all the best practices. If your authentication infrastructure is distributed across different services, then they may be out of sync. If you find a better way, if you find a more reliable way to authorize on one service, then you have to basically replicate it across all the services that are there. So it means that it's a good design pattern that you have those centralized authentication infrastructure. And there, what you are doing there is that you are doing directory synchronization, you are doing federation with external identity provider, you are doing lifecycle automation, you are also looking into how you can look into the cloud identity. So that needs to be centralized. And so when rolling out. Now, if you look into the IAM management strategy, now IAM is in all the services in Google Cloud. It needs to go through authentication and authorization, and this is relevant to all the services. There is no exclusion. IAM, the way you create the users, IAM users. Now how you you want to make sure that you are giving privileges to the right person. You are making sure that there is a principle of least privilege that you are following. Then the roles, if someone needs admin privileges, if you want to escalate that, then you manage that. It is done in a time limited manner. So it also means that any workflow that you have, it is using only the users that are either the traditional users or the service level IAM roles that are kept to a bare minimum. And also, if there's a privilege account, it goes through a monitoring process and it's managed on following the best practices. Now, if you look into how you are going to the threat protection measures, there are different ways you can do that. First of all, there are different encryption layers. They are turned on by default. And now the keys that are there are different ways you can manage those keys. You can use the Google Manage Key mechanism. If there is a regulatory requirement that you want to bring your own keys, then there are different ways you can do that as well. If you can bring your own keys, public and private keys, you can put that in Google Managed Key Infrastructure, and that is called KMS. KMS is where you will put those keys that if there's a requirement, you want to use your own key. Either for wide variety of the users, Google will do it for you. But if you are working for a bank or an organization where there's a private key that you need to use, then that private key will be embedded here, and that is also possible. Now, it's important that you are aware of the regulatory requirement of when you are going to rotate the key, and how you are going to properly version it as well. Now, network security is another part of it. So if you are using infrastructure as a service, you will be starting with the VPC, that is the virtual private cloud. It's a CDN, that is software defined network, but you want to make sure that you are following the best practices there. So yeah, and for example, if there is you have a database, now database needs to be in the private VPC, it should not be exposed directly to the public. It should be exposed through a web server. And so all those principles, you follow that just to make sure that your infrastructure, your data, and your logic, that is protected. And now you sometimes what you also need to do is that if you are using containers. Now containers has their own security needs. Now container security means that right here, if you are looking into containers, so first of all, now containers are ephemeral in many cases. They come and go, but still what you want to do is that you want to make sure that the image through which they are created, that is reliable, and if they are using them, then they are protected against the emerging threats that are there, because those containers sometimes are using libraries. They are usually protected through the hypervisor, but there can be certain threats. Certain ports can be open if the data is within those containers, or it is mounted in the container. Then if the container gets compromised, even if your other layers are protected, so it means that your logic and the data, it may be at risk to be go in wrong hands. Now, if you want to look into the application layer security, now we call it as shift left security practice. Shift left means that if in the development cycle, if the development cycle is here, and this is where the business requirements are here, and this is where the solution, it goes through different phases. First, there is first iteration, you do data prep, then perhaps you train the model, then you deploy that, then you test it, and then you deploy it, right? Shift left means that the security practices should be shift towards the design. When you're designing it, when you are, so it should not be an afterthought. It should not be if you deployed the solution and then someone compromised it, and then you are addressing to that. So we would like to have a philosophy, a design methodology. We are trying to bake the security principles in the design. And this is where when we are doing the code review, security is a non-functional requirement. It means that if we are not conscious about it, so it won't break any test case, right? So if the unit test case that we will provide, so we keep the security in mind throughout the process. Now, if you look into the application level security, OWASP, they have a website, and if you look into the OWASP, what they do is that they talk about the use cases where the security of cloud that was compromised. So it's useful if you visit their website and see that what are the different use cases in recent years, that how the security of the cloud and large scale infrastructure that was compromised, and what were the issues, So these are sort of post-mortem reports, and they are extremely helpful if you want to look into the actual use cases. Now, audit is something I said that in Google Cloud you cannot turn it off, but they are automated tools. You can look into those tools to understand if something has gone wrong, that what happened, and based on that you can learn and improve your security protocols and design. Now, if you look into the monitoring process, so nothing can be detected if you are not monitoring your infrastructure. So those continuous compliance monitoring is important if you want to maintain the the compliance status, and it means that there should be a complete continuous compliance scanning pipeline. That is actually what it's doing is that um, it's making sure that as new threats emerge, your security system is still relevant and effective. Now, if you want to look into data breaches, so multi-layer detection is one thing. The second thing I would say is that the behavior-based anomaly, and sometimes not all data needs to be protected. In that case, you can have the critical assets, and those critical assets should be put behind the multi-layer protection, and all the machine learning that can detect it, that can be used there as well. Now, if you want to look into uh, there are different case studies. Usually, if you look into in the cloud, they emerge from the cloud misconfiguration. So the blockbuster or famous the incident that has happened in recent past, Amazon gone down for, or Teams was not available, or Google Cloud has an issue, BigQuery has an issue. Almost all of them, they resulted from cloud misconfiguration. Someone misconfigured the YAML file. Someone forgot to update something. So this is something that we need to follow strict processes, strict procedures, that making sure that if there is a change in configuration, we extensively test it. There are rigorous processes and procedures that do not depend on any probability of human error, because the human can make mistakes. But if there is a process, procedure, proper testing before that can be deployed, then it can reduce that to a minimum. Now, best practices for the cloud is that first of all, it's important that there is an awareness. It's the awareness and two things: awareness, and there's knowledge, there's training. So this is important, that there's a security culture development. So if they realize that what is the importance of security in their organization, and what is their importance, especially to make things work. And now cloud certification is another thing that can be looked into. Threat simulation, acting as a bad player, it will give you some idea that what can go wrong and how to resolve that. Now, best practices for the cloud, it's about the technical priority. It can be about external validation process. So within the organization, there should be processes, procedures that you should be aware of, the tools that are there, the dashboards, the design patterns too. I talked about depth of defense and principle of least privilege, how they can be, what tools are available in the cloud, a combination of that. This is all part of the internal response to these security threats, and there should be some external validation as well for regulatory purposes, where there can be external teams that can do penetration testing, that can simulate a threat, and based on that you can improve your infrastructure after learning the vulnerabilities. So that's all that I have to present. Any questions?
Thank you, Imran. That was incredibly insightful. Now, I know everyone's looking forward to the Q&A session, so go ahead and start putting your questions into the questions panel. And while you do that, I'd like to give the presentation rights over to Ifla, our product marketing person, who's going to introduce you to some of our fantastic promotions and webinar-related courses.
Thank you, Tracy. Insightful session. I believe everyone must have learned something new today or would have been able to brush up their skills around Google Cloud technology.
So firstly, I'm excited to announce that Netcom Learning is now an authorized training partner for Google Cloud, making us your go-to destination for cloud skilling. With this milestone, we are proud to offer comprehensive training across the three leading cloud technologies globally: Microsoft Azure, AWS Cloud, and now Google Cloud. So we, Netcom Learning, is your one-stop shop for cloud skilling. I would also quickly like to take you through some of our hand picked resources, which we think will immensely help in accelerating your Google Cloud skilling journey. Well, this document here that I'm presenting has been shared with you all in the handout section of GoToWebinar panel. You can download this document and access all the resources and browse all the offerings we have curated for you. So first up is the list of our recommended courses, which we feel will best suit your learning journey after attending our masterclass. So all these courses here are hyperlinked. Feel free to go through them post-event and check out the course descriptions and prerequisites and the value it can add to you and your team skill sets. Additionally, we have curated a blend of resources, including our upcoming and on-demand events, as well as some informative and educational blogs. So you can make the most of these resources to gain extensive knowledge on the Google Cloud topics they cover. Also here, I would like to inform you that today's masterclass session is being recorded. So in case you want to refer back to any of the topics that were covered by the trainer today, we'll be sharing the recording link with you through emails, and also you can access the link here on the handout so that you can revisit the session and learn at your own pace. Now, apart from our virtual sessions, you can also catch all the relevant updates related to IT and business training on our social media handles. So please feel free to follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel for all the latest updates. Our official pages and channels are linked here on the icons. Finally, if you have any suggestions regarding the topics you would like us to cover in our upcoming webinars and masterclasses, please don't hesitate to send us a direct message or leave a comment on our social media posts, or you can just simply email us at google@netcomlearning.com. We would definitely try to come up with the sessions on your suggested topics. Thank you once again for joining us today. You guys have a good one. Thank you.
Thanks so much for guiding us through that information, Ifla. And now we're going to go ahead and jump right into our question and answer session. With the increasing sophistication of ransomware attacks targeting cloud infrastructure, what specific security controls do you recommend implementing beyond the standard offerings from major cloud providers?
If ransom attack, or if someone can, of course, get hold of your resources infrastructure, right? So the ransom attacks in cloud, for example, in Google, they're only possible if you are not building depth of defense. If there is depth of defense, what's going to happen is that there will be some time before all layers of trust they are breached. So depth of defense is the best way you can defend against this. If you do not have depth in defense, if you have just one layer of security, then it becomes prone to ransom attacks. So depth of defense, what it means is that there is not only IAM. IAM is your first layer of security, then the data itself that is encrypted, then the service that itself is encrypted, then you're also using for example, the cloud armor and those things. It means that it almost becomes impossible, and that is our best defense against it. There is very rare that if someone has built I've never come across any use case. If someone has built depth in defense and still there is some ransom attack.
Our organization is considering a multi-cloud strategy. What are the unique security challenges this approach presents, and how can we effectively manage security policies across our different cloud environments?
Now, increasingly, many companies, due to different dependencies or the other requirements, they have more than, for example, they have AWS and as well as they have Google Cloud there as well. Now, one thing is that IAM, for example, it's common across AWS and Google and Azure. So on the conceptual level, all of these clouds have so there is have similar tools. So there is IAM in AWS, IAM in Google. If there is Cloud Armor in Google, then there is DNS service in AWS. If so, all of this, if you can turn encryption on in Google, then the same level of encryption is provided in AWS. So you design your security in a cloud agnostic manner. So you first define the what part, and then you define the how part, that how you will done in one cloud and how you will done that other cloud as well. And I don't think of a scenario that there is something that is offered in one cloud and that is not offered in the other one. So this is how, so go with the cloud agnostic design and then try to map it to the specific environment. Okay, so
I'm concerned about the shadow IT in our company, where departments are spinning up cloud resources without proper security oversight. What governance frameworks have you found most effective for balancing innovation speed with security requirements?
Now, so it depends that you need to define policies, IAM policies, right? So when a user can launch, for example, a new resource, so it needs to be following the one of the policies, right? It's not that and that the users of a company are unable to change the default policy, right? So they should have. So this is where you will strike the balance between innovation and the security. Yes, they can launch the new resources, but the resources needs to be compliant to the policies of the company, right? So this is the way you can do that. So the implementation, this is where I talked about those centralized security, that you have a centralized security where the policies, the roles, and so they are centralized at a location, and all the users and resources, they need to follow those policies. So otherwise, anyone can unintentionally create something that can expose a vulnerability. Now.
Could you elaborate on how zero trust architecture principles can be practically implemented in cloud environments, especially for organizations transitioning from traditional on-premises infrastructure?
So zero trust security is that on every step of the way in a workflow, you authenticate and authorize over and over again. You'd have zero trust in the cached authentication and authorization. So there's a flag, you can turn that off, and this is, I mentioned it will be a bit slower because you have to do authentication authorization over and over again, but of course it will be more secure. So it is, if that is what need to be done, so there is just a flag that you don't rely on cached authentication authorization, and you just move on. So it's very simple to do that in Google Cloud.
We've invested heavily in security tools, but still struggle with alert fatigue and prioritization. What strategies would you recommend for security teams to effectively manage the volume of security signals coming from cloud environments while also ensuring critical threats don't get missed?
So now, if Yeah, so it's a good practice to err on the side of caution, but it will result in the generation of too many alerts, right? This is where use of machine learning tools. So there are machine learning solutions in the Google Cloud that will help you analyze a threat pattern. So the alerts, a combination of alerts, they represent a pattern. And so machine learning needs to quantify that whether this threat risk goes above the threshold or not. If so, then you have to take some corrective action. Otherwise, just ignore it. So this is where use of machine learning that becomes input to these alerts. This will be an effective strategy to use.
Once again, I want to remind you that as you leave this session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to help us by taking a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience as we are constantly looking at how we can improve our future sessions. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. We want to thank all of you for joining us today, and if you do come up with any additional questions, feel free to send them to webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. We hope that you found today's webinar informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us soon. Feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Have a great day, everyone.